Hello and welcome to the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. The intention of this podcast is to open your mind, get curious about yourself and connect to the power you hold within. I am your host, Karen Maloney, an inside-out coach, helping you to believe in yourself and manifest your desires. Check out the podcast, available on all platforms, and go to my website, www.karenmaloney.com for all info. Hello everybody, welcome back. It's another episode and I have another wonderful guest for you this week and topic, which is all about shamanism. And my guest this week is Olivia Hardt Griffith. And as Olivia says, becoming a shaman is not a decision that one makes for themselves. It is a soul calling. Olivia answered this call over a decade ago, embarking on a journey that has led her to become a fully trained and initiated shaman. In 2016, she completed her rigorous training and initiation, and since then has continued to deepen her knowledge and expertise through advanced and master level shamanic training. For the past 8 years, Olivia has been seeing clients on a daily basis, helping them to heal from physical, mental, and emotional issues. In addition, she has been training and initiating others on the shamanic path for over 4 years. She is passionate about helping people connect with their inner wisdom and spiritual guidance, and is dedicated to empowering her clients to live their best lives. And yeah, it was really interesting and great to have Olivia join, and she shared lots on the shamanic perspective of how shamans work with any disease in the body and how they're really working with the soul, the spirit and the energy body. And I love how she mentioned as well how our spirit filters down and informs the mind, and then the mind informs the body. So it's working on that higher level to really get to the root or the imprint of the original trauma or wound or the root cause of the physical disease, whether it's cancer or whatever manifestation is showing in the body. She does a lot of soul journeys when she is working with a client, and it's to help to bring parts of that person back to themselves so they can begin to heal. Olivia also shared how any issue that presents in the body, from the shamanic perspective, they look at it as a symptom of another spiritual, mental or emotional issue going on in the body. But also generally how trauma, both big T trauma and small t trauma, can have a huge impact on the body. So there's lots in this episode as well. Olivia shares lots of practical tools and tips as well that you can do for yourself, including affirmations, stress management tools, and she also shares a really powerful exercise towards the end of the conversation that can help you to change your whole perspective and mindset on maybe your life or also the disease and what you're going through at the moment. So even if you're not working with a shaman or working directly with Olivia, she shares lots in this episode to support you as well. And you can find out more on Olivia's work. I will link her Instagram and Facebook. It's Olivia Hardt, and that's Hardt. Her website is still under construction, but that is shamanolivia.com when it is up and running. Olivia also shares her email at the end of the conversation where you can reach out to her, but I will have that linked as well on the show notes on my website with all her other links, so you can go to karenmaloney.com and click the podcast section. Enjoy. Welcome everybody, and welcome Olivia. I'm so excited to connect with you again and to have you back joining, this time solo. So first of all, thanks for joining again for this series.
Absolutely. I'm honored and thankful to be here talking with you today.
Yeah, and I'm excited to this conversation as well, and to learn more about cancer and illnesses and diseases in the body from a shamanic perspective. So first of all, please just introduce yourself and maybe even how you became a shaman.
Okay, so my name is Olivia Hardt Griffith, and Becoming a shaman is definitely not a choice that I made in my life. It was much more of a calling. I believe very much that, you know, a shaman is born to do this type of work. And it was actually another shaman that told me that I was a shaman.
Wow.
And I kind of laughed and really did. I was like, no, that's too hard. I don't, that's not the path I want to take. I want to see a shaman, not be a shaman. And little did I know it really wasn't my choice. And over time, as I learned this, I realized that it was something that my soul very deeply knew. And also, it was very natural to me. And the more that I did it, the more I fell in love with it, really
Mm.
because of the opportunity to help other people and seeing how much better people got, whether it be physical, mental, emotional illnesses. You know, it's a weird thing because when you go into it, it's sort of like you don't know how much you really believe in the power of it. And
Yeah.
over time, just seeing what the changes in my clients have been has just opened my eyes and blown my mind and really made me realize the true possibilities of doing this type of work when you commit to it.
That's amazing. And yeah, that's really fascinating. And you know, just and it's obviously a deep topic as well, but what are some of the ways that a shaman may work with the person, like you mentioned, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects versus another modality? Like what are you seeing, or what are you working with?
So we're working with the soul, the spirit, and the energy
Mm.
body. So when we do this work, we're very much journeying, going to this alternate place where we are able to perceive different issues within the energy body, and those
Mm.
issues are often or almost always tied to physical, mental, and emotional aspects. So we really look I do like a really clear, clean look at the energy body. And I just look at any imbalances. I look at anything that's there that shouldn't be there. I look
Mm.
at what needs repairs or what needs, additional support. And I go in and that's what I do. And then I do what I call or what a shaman calls a soul journey. And I go and look
Mm.
at these different aspects of the soul and how I can bring things back and heal things for the person or help them heal things that will, change the trajectory of whatever direction they're headed, whether they're in physical, mental, or emotional distress.
So interesting. And there's so many other things I would love to delve into in that, but maybe another time. Today we're looking at cancer specifically in the body, and, just to expand the conversation on that and to look at different modalities and different areas that look at this differently as well from different perspectives. So, what is the shamanic perspective as well on cancer, or is it the same as any physical or mental emotional disease that appears in the body, or are there subtleties and differences?
So there are definitely some differences that I've
Mm.
noticed. One, the way that a shaman views physical illness is a symptom of a spiritual, mental, emotional illness that has developed over time. So what we believe is that when someone experiences a trauma in their lives, it sits in the energy body at one of the chakras. And over time, it starts trying to heal itself by attracting similar people or situations to try to help that person heal. So if you ever meet somebody and they've been in, they had an abusive parent as a child and then they end up with an abusive boyfriend and then an abusive spouse and it's kind of like this cyclical
Mhm.
attraction of the same situation over and over again, but just in different people and different forms. It's often that they have a trauma in the energy body that's trying to heal. And what happens over time when that goes unhealed is it actually develops into a physical illness, a physical manifestation. it's interesting because, to give you an example of, someone who I worked with who had cancer, she came to me, she had stage 4 breast cancer, and she had been dealing with this for quite some time. And she had shared with me that she had had several, abortions. And that was interesting because very much the breasts are a maternal aspect of us. And she had really had trouble healing emotionally from these abortions. Or when I went on the actual soul journey and I started to pull information about where this trauma originated, I actually saw her as a little girl, and she was wearing a white dress and had pigtails, and it was like a photograph that I was looking at. And she was supposed to be so excited, but she was not. She was scared. And I told her about this image that I saw, and that she appeared to be about 4 or 5 years old. And she said, that is the exact photo that I have from my kindergarten graduation. She said, I was supposed to be, excited for this day, but I was being sexually abused by my mother's boyfriend at the time, and he was coming, so I was very scared. So what this looked like in the form of cancer was, it was this, issue that was from this childhood trauma, that it continued to attract these different situations to try to heal itself. And when it wasn't able to heal, it manifested as cancer. And what I know about things like, sexual abuse, and as a survivor myself of sexual abuse, I know that there's a lot of shame that we carry with it. And shame sometimes looks like self-hatred. It looks like beating ourselves up mentally, verbally. And so when I look at cancers, what's interesting is that there's often a component of self-hatred that the person has within them. And because it's not being healed or addressed, it starts to show up and fight the body and eat at the body. So that is one interesting component of cancer that I've noticed with clients.
So interesting. And I'm not a shaman. I don't work in that way per se, but the more I learn and the more I connect with different people and study and learn about new things, the more, a lot align to the idea that a physical manifestation in the body starts somewhere else. It starts in the energy, in the emotional, in the mental body first. And if left unhealed, like you say, does present. And again, it's as a call for help. And, I think that trauma piece is a huge element as well. But, they talk about trauma, big T trauma and small T trauma, because sometimes, I don't know what way to say it, but sometimes it can seem more logical to a person if someone had a big T trauma, like abuse or something in their past, that it may manifest into a physical manifestation like cancer. But for someone who maybe didn't have a big T trauma like that, are there still elements of trauma that can come into play? Or what other things have you seen as well that can manifest as a cancer down the line if left unhealed?
You are very, very wise to even, differentiate the big T, small T type trauma, because it's something that a lot of people don't think about, right? We don't think, okay, this one moment in my childhood where I was sitting in a classroom and this kid said this thing to me that hurt my feelings really badly, that I almost forgot about, is somehow still living in my energy body and somehow still cyclically attracting similar situations for me to try to heal it. But it's the same thing, like a small T trauma over time, if it goes unhealed, can become a big T trauma, because over time, the situations that you attract, because it's like the imprint in the energy body of what we would consider a small trauma, is desperate to heal. So the situations that you are attracting can become bigger and more traumatic over time, as well as when the physical illness develops. And I mean, something like that is maybe not as significant of a trauma to somebody that's living in the energy body, maybe would create like a slow moving type cancer, or maybe it would be a small health hiccup that over time becomes bigger if it's not addressed. So that's very much something that can happen.
Yeah, because, I think in general, we do kind of cast aside other things that happen to us because we might be like, oh, but that's silly. Or in hindsight, we're like, but how would that have an impact? But again, as a child, we have to understand that we don't have the analytical mind, and anything that, scares us or makes us feel abandoned or left alone, they're big at that time. So yeah, just something to touch on as well, because I think like that we can all understand the bigger T traumas, but like you say, the smaller ones are still as impactful at the time, and can continue to be if unhealed as well.
I actually have a lot of clients who have been judgmental of their own trauma as insignificant, because they
Yeah.
didn't believe that, like when they hear about other people's trauma, they compare it and they don't think it's as significant, but that's absolutely not true. We should not judge our own trauma, nor should anybody else
Mhm.
judge our own trauma, because to us, trauma is trauma. And to the energy body, trauma is trauma. So it is going to show up in whatever way. And, the difference is, like, in these tribes, like my tribe of initiation, which is the Kiero tribe, the way that they would practice is the moment someone would have a trauma, they brought them directly to the shaman, and the shaman would remove the traumatic imprint so it would never develop into this cyclical problem in their lives or this physical illness. And my teacher was actually a medical anthropologist before he was trained as a shaman, and was sent over to the Amazon to figure out, well, why is their life expectancy longer than ours? They live in the jungle with jaguars and snakes and all of these deadly poisonous insects, but there's no cancer, there's no diabetes, there's no physical illnesses like this. And, he expected to go over there and find that there was some magical plant or pill that people were taking, or not pill, but some magical plant or tea that
Mm.
people were taking. But the truth is that it was not. It was honestly a way of life. And the tribe that initiated me does not really use plant medicines in the way that some indigenous
Mm.
shamans use, because they don't believe it's necessary to reach that
Mm.
altered state of healing. They don't believe that the plant medicines are necessary. So it was pretty phenomenal to realize that these people were so healthy with no disease, just because of how they removed trauma.
And do you think trauma is the root always of, that imprint, or can something else cause that initial imprint in the energetic body that can then manifest whether into cancer or another disease?
From my perspective, I believe that there's always trauma associated with the imprint and the
Mm.
physical disease. So I believe without trauma, physical disease couldn't be present. And that's an
Yeah.
interesting one. And I'll mention this because I had a client ask me this the other day, and I think I maybe even shared this with you. But, I have completely recovered from this through my healing work, but I
Mm.
was diagnosed with Lyme disease several years ago. And this was like about 8 years ago now. I wasn't able to walk for a year. I didn't have enough ability to even walk to the bathroom. It was very significant in my life. And as I was discussing this with a client, he had what's called gadolinium poisoning from a actually having like an MRI with contrast done. And he was asking me, well, I didn't poison myself with this, and you weren't the reason that you got bit by a tick. So how is that associated with trauma? And I said, well, the difference is that something within your body is not able to process the gadolinium. Just like like lots of people have been bit with ticks by Lyme disease, but they don't get sick because their immune systems are strong enough to fight that off, and the Lyme disease goes dormant within their system. So the truth is that it's not always like, okay, this imprint caused this physical illness, but it's that the imprint is the reason that the person is unable to heal the physical illness.
So interesting. Um, because again, nobody is consciously creating illness or cancer or these issues for themselves. But again, if we have that mindset of what might be within us. And you know, I don't know if this is the bigger conversation of, you know, in health in general, and if something presents in the body, how we can support ourselves to have a different awareness or have a different perspective on it, as opposed to going straight to fear. Well, no, fear is valid, but kind of negativity, or this idea that our body is giving up on us. And you know, you mentioned it as well earlier, how from the shamanic perspective these things present in order to try for the body to heal itself. So how can we help ourselves as well in that process of having, you know, a different awareness or a different approach to when something presents in our body?
Okay, so what you're asking, let me just make sure I'm getting this correctly. You're asking what we can do to support our body to heal from these things.
And even support ourselves in the first place of having a different mindset or approach or awareness, instead of going straight into victim and feel like it's hopeless and our body's given up on us.
So really, truly, one is the moment that you start saying, my body is giving up on me, or you start saying or believing things about your body's abilities, you know, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you automatically are giving your body permission to fail because you're telling it that it's going to. So what you want to do, and this is like a lot of the people that I work with that are physically ill, one of the biggest factors is their own self-talk and how they are talking to themselves about what's happening to them. And a lot of people become very abusive to their own self because they're very mad at their body because they feel like their body is failing them. And the body is not failing you. The body's reacting to what is unhealed. So the one thing that you have to do is learn to love your body, learn to honor your body for all that it's doing to fight off whatever you're experiencing. For me personally, through my healing journey, one of the most difficult things was I felt like I was beating myself up because I felt so guilty for what I couldn't do. And I was
Mm.
like, you know, my husband's working so hard every day, then he's coming home and he's having to find dinner for me because I can't even stand up long enough to make anything. I mean, it was just, I felt a lot of guilt around that. And my healing journey, a huge part of it was learning to stop beating up my body and love my body for when it was only able to rest. So when these feelings of guilt would come up, I would say, listen, I love the part of me that feels this way, but I'm going to release those thoughts and I'm going to honor and love myself for just being able to rest today, because that is what my body is asking me for. And the more that I did that, the more that I loved on myself, even in the times that I wasn't able to do or accomplish what I wanted, I started to heal. So that, in conjunction with working with a shaman, I had already become one. This was like the very beginning, right when I was initiated. But being able to learn and work through that in the shamanic way was just an incredible shift for me out of being sick.
Wow, yeah, that self talk is huge. And you're not the first person in this series as well to have mentioned that and to have spoken about that. And that's exactly my work as well, because, you know, our body is still a living organism and it is still listening and responding to everything that we say, whether positive, negative, or neutral, without judgment. It accepts it as truth. And I think no matter how difficult, it really is a place that we can look at and support ourselves through as well, no matter how difficult it is. Because yeah, it is going to be difficult and it is up and down. And I think that piece you mentioned, that guilt of being reliant on other people or having to ask for help or feeling helpless, that is huge. But I love just what you said as well. And I don't know if you remember it exactly, but can you just share that as well? Because even saying the piece of I'm willing to release these thoughts is massive.
So, whenever the thoughts would
Perfect.
come up and I would start to feel guilty and want to try to force myself to get up when I didn't have the energy or strength to do it, is I would say, I love this part of myself that feels guilty, because you have to eliminate any kind of self hatred. So, you can't even be mad at the part of you that feels guilty, because that is just being a human being. So I said, I love the part of myself that feels guilty, but I'm going to release these feelings of guilt, and I'm going to honor myself for just being able to rest today. And I would cheer myself on for the days that I couldn't get up. And that is really when the transition for me really shifted. And because, autoimmune, which is what Lyme is, and so many other illnesses that we talk about, that's the body attacking itself. So in a way, when I was feeling these things and saying these things to myself, I was helping my body attack itself instead of saying, no, no more attack. I am going to love you for exactly where you are. I'm going to thank my body for everything it's doing to fight this illness, because goodness knows it was working overtime to try to fix this. So I started to just really love and honor my body and myself for everything that I was doing to heal.
That's beautiful. And, it's certainly not easy, but also I think when we play and we explore with changing our inner self talk, and when we notice how it feels in our body, we see that it actually feels even a little bit better than the self hatred. And, it's easier to be in the self hatred because it might just feel more normal and that negativity bias and everything. But actually, when we play and explore, like that, it just kind of takes the pressure off a little, that you don't have to feel amazing, but just moving out of that cycle. And I think that's really powerful, just what you shared. And I think everyone should just write down that sentence and substitute whatever feeling they're feeling, and say to themselves over and over again, no matter what they're going through, because it is really powerful. So thank you for sharing that as well. I think it's a beautiful and powerful sentence. And then what else have you witnessed or experienced through cancer, or how it presents in the body, or where it presents in the body, and what you've learned of the different elements that maybe have tied into that? Or I know we mentioned trauma, but are there other things as well that kind of lead to this manifestation in the body?
One really big thing that comes to mind is just suppression or repression of emotions. A lot of people that get sick with different things, the reason that their body is reacting the way it is because they're not processing their emotions. So I think a lot of things that when my clients are physically ill, one really big aspect that I notice a lot and that we work on a lot is saying, okay, what is being suppressed and how can we release this in a healthy way so that it's no longer living in the body? Because when we're placing these things, like I have clients who, when they stop using the tools because they feel so much better, they kind of slip back up and they start to store the emotions in their body again, and they notice the physical response of that. So, someone might have, gastrointestinal issues or, like some form of gastrointestinal cancer, or a cancer that's in the lower chakras. A lot of the time they are suppressing so much that is living in their body and it's growing there. Like people that get stressed out and then they get a stomach ache, that is a great indicator of someone who's storing emotions in their stomach. So, it's interesting, and everybody's different. There's some people that, I have them channel their emotions. It's the easiest way for them to do it is to write. And a lot of the times, if there's significant trauma involving specific people, we write like one of the homework exercises that I give them is to write a letter to that person that you're never going to give them. But you write absolutely every thought, every feeling that you have about them. And it's no matter how raw and ugly that letter has to be, it has to be released. And then when they're ready, they can burn that letter as a way of just releasing all of that and not letting all of those feelings and emotions live inside of them anymore. Stress is another huge, huge factor in people that have trouble healing. So stress management tools are another really big thing that I work with people on. I have, clients that after a session, like all of their physical symptoms, whatever they may be, are gone. And they feel absolutely amazing. And sometimes it blows my mind because I'm like, how does this work like this? Like like I am the world's biggest skeptic. So when I started this, I didn't even believe how powerful it was until I just kept seeing the physical responses over and over again. And with people, they may be perfect after a session, but if they don't have the tools to deal with stress in a healthy way, or if they stop using them because, like I said, they feel really good, so they're not even thinking about it anymore, that's when a lot of the time I'll see, recurring physical symptoms. Like they're like, oh, I was great for this long. And then, I started having these problems again physically. And then I'll always ask them, what happened at that point? What occurred in your life before those physical symptoms started again? And it's always some sort of stressful situation that brought it back to the surface. So it's very important to, like I always tell people, I can help you heal yourself, but there are things that you have to be implementing in your life to better deal with stress, better deal with the release of emotions in a healthy way. Sometimes getting like physical in like a, kickboxing or in martial arts or in one of these things is like a great release of energy for people. I had, a client recently tell me that they had hurt their hand because they had to just go outside and release a bunch of anger. And I was like, okay, well, let's find a safe way to channel that energy, because at times, especially when we're healing, healing is like peeling an onion. So people that have repressed or suppressed their emotions for a long time, they start to come up and they need something to do with them that is healthy. So whether that be they write, or whether that be that they go outside and they, just have like a physical, like, screaming match in the woods somewhere where they just need to release it. It's so important. And everybody's different. So some people really want to do, like, they don't have as much anger stored and they like the writing works great for them. And then there's other people that just need to go outside and run or do something with their physical body to help them release what's been stored.
Yeah. So true. And when you said that suppression or repression of emotions as well, I was just, what popped into my head, I was like, that was definitely, I think, because I don't know, part of my dad's journey and why the cancer presented in his body as well, and possibly some trauma. I don't actually know, but it makes a lot of sense as well. And, I love all those things you're sharing, like journaling, writing out emotions, stress management. Again, these are all lifestyle issues. And these are lifestyle diseases. It's kind of how we're living and how we're not, or how we're not giving, because it's nobody's fault. We're not taught these things, but how we don't have the tools to support ourselves. Like you said, stress management tools or releasing emotions healthily. These are all vital aspects that we need to do for ourselves that we don't have unless we, like that, something presents and we have to make changes, or we just are curious ourselves to go look for these things. And I think it's important what you said as well. These are life skills as well, and they're tools for life. We don't just stop using them because we feel good. We use them again and again and again and again because, again, we're a living organism. There's always layers. There's something new that might come up, and they're there to support and to help us. So I love all those bits as well that you shared. And again, just the capacity of the body, the spirit to heal as well sometimes when we work on that level. So yeah, and then, obviously working with a shaman is specific, and obviously someone needs to work with a shaman for that. Is it always soul journeying that you're doing with the person, or what other elements come into play from the shamanic perspective when helping a person with cancer?
So if somebody's sick, a soul journey is a huge, huge proponent of what I do, because that's where we go to find out. Like, the soul journey gives me enough information about what's going on emotionally, spiritually with the person to help them heal it. And the other aspect is just, first of all, locating the imprint in the chakra system, clearing out anything in the energy body that's not supposed to be there, because things like that can have a profound effect physically on people. Also, just going through and clearing the imprint, and also like in the energy body, and also going through and just doing a really deep cleansing of the entire energy body and the whole chakra system, so that that person's feeling like they're sparkly, they're clean, their energy body is beautiful. And within the days to come, I work at the level of spirit, and spirit trickles down and informs the mind, and the mind trickles down and informs the body. So the first thing that a person feels after a session is mentally, emotionally much better. They feel, and some of these things, we're talking about trauma here, but all of my clients at the end of a session tell me they feel so peaceful. At the end of every session, I manually reset the person's fight or flight. So it takes them out of that zone and mode of stress. So it just leaves them feeling like really calm, really peaceful. And the word that I hear so often is, I feel so much lighter. So there's definitely a lot of clearing work that goes in. In the soul journey, I do a lot of clearing work as well. I retrieve things during the soul journey, information for them, tools for them, bring these things back to them. And when I tell them these things, it informs the mind of what the soul knows. And it informs the mind of what the mind and the emotions need to be able to heal. So a lot of times when I will say something, someone will like have an epiphany during the session, because they're like, oh, wow, it makes so much sense. When that happened, or when I used to feel that way, I felt it in that place of their body, wherever they're sick. So it's really just an interesting thing when you inform the mind and emotional being of what the soul already knows. It really can have a profound shift in the direction things are going for them.
So interesting. And again, it just how we're all connected and how we're so much bigger than just the physical body. It really is fascinating to me and mind-blowing. And maybe just to touch on, because you mentioned it a couple of times, the chakras, and what is the significance of what chakra maybe it's hitting on, or where it is in the body, and what it can be connected to physically or within the person's life.
So, for example, the case that I was talking about earlier, which I maintain complete confidentiality with all my
Yeah.
clients, I would never give anything away that would give them away. But the case that I mentioned earlier, that was with the breast cancer, that was at the heart chakra, because the heart chakra is associated with the breast. So like it goes like a band that wraps all the way around your body. The chakra comes through the front. It's like a funnel that comes, like the funnel gets small at the physical body, and then it opens up at the front, and then it's the same exact way in the back. So, if somebody's having some sort of cancer in their body, it's almost always the chakra that is closest to where the cancer is living that is affected. Or I guess I should say that the chakra that the imprint, or where I find the issues at, is closest to where the cancer is living in the body.
Fascinating. And, I really appreciate you coming and sharing today on cancer from the shamanic perspective, and just sharing that insight, and again, tools and how you work with the person and supporting them, and even the practicalities that people can do for themselves without having to work with someone as well. So interesting. And if there's anything else that you feel called to share, please do. And please also share where people can find out more on your work.
Sure. So, okay, one thing that popped into my head that I also would like to share for people who may not be able to see a shaman, or work with a shaman, is that a huge element that I notice as well, that is really a huge proponent of helping people heal, is a shift of perspective. So they talk about the lifespan of an optimist versus a pessimist. So that's pretty obvious why there would be a difference there, because like we talked about, the way somebody thinks, especially about themselves or their lives, has a profound impact on their health. So one tool that I love to use with clients who may be really, really negative about things that have happened in the past is we go through a story where we write everything that is wrong with that situation, everything that is wrong and not working in their lives, and how they feel like, almost like some of them feel like they were born into the wrong body, that they are not meant to be living the life that they're living, that they, should be somewhere else, living in a different country, whatever they may believe. Or they feel like, you often hear the cards that they were dealt in life. So a profound exercise is where we write all this story out about how they were dropped off at the wrong house by the stork, and everything in their childhood, what was wrong about their parents, what was wrong about their lives, what happened that wasn't good. Then the next exercise that we do is we rewrite their story. We write why the stork dropped me off at the perfect house, how everything in your life that you have experienced was there to teach you something, was there to bring a lesson, was there to help you heal. And it helps the person reframe their mindset around their lives. It helps them shift out of these negative beliefs about their story and rewrite the story to show everything beautiful that's in their life, everything that is absolutely perfect and exactly as it should be. People often, they start to, and I understand this, because when you're sick, it's awful. Like, whether or not you want to, it's very easy to get stuck in victimhood and this mentality of, depression around being sick. But what I like to help people do is shift into a place of empowerment, to shift into a place of positivity, to really just reframe their mindsets about everything in their lives. And I think that is another really big thing that helps people heal. So if people at home would like to do that, I think that's a very powerful exercise.
Extremely powerful.
Absolutely. It's about how people can find me. I work remotely completely. I do work with students and train and initiate them as shaman. I've been doing that for the last 4 years, but I do all my work remotely. I live in a cabin on a mountain in the middle of the woods where it's very peaceful, and I work over the phone with clients. So if they're interested in working with me, they can reach out to me by email, because that's how I schedule, which is Olivia Griffith 007@yahoo.com, or they can go to my website or my social media pages that are going to be linked with this episode.
Yes, amazing. I will share them all on the show notes as well. And thank you for everything that you've shared as well today, Olivia. I've really enjoyed connecting again, and I wish you all the best.
Oh, and you too, Karen. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure. And I really hope that people are finding new ways to heal through your show, which I know they are. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks for listening. And before you go, I would love to ask you a massive favor. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode of the podcast, I would love for you to leave a short review on Apple Podcasts to help it grow. If you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it.